Hey everybody, I'm Jesse, producer of the No Quitting the Home Team podcast. I wanted to give a quick disclaimer in that while we hope anyone who listens would gain wisdom and insight from Dave and Renee's conversations, this is still a podcast intended for married couples, and to that end there will occasionally be dialogue around sexual intimacy and other related topics. So, for those of you who may be single and particularly sensitive to this subject matter, or those who may be listening at home or in the car with their kids around, we wanted to give you a heads up in advance so that you might continue listening at your own discretion.
Hello, welcome everyone to No Quitting the Home Team, a no season designated podcast on marriage. I'm Renee.
I'm Dave.
I'm Jesse.
And I'm Michelle.
Yay!
What up, girl?
Hello.
Hey, today on the show, we're actually super excited to have a guest couple. So, Jesse and Michelle Cowan, welcome to the show.
Welcome.
Thanks for having us.
Thanks for having us.
We actually had Michelle on phone
Yep.
during one episode,
Yep.
and it was a fabulous interaction that the audio wasn't good enough
Didn't quite make the cut.
to include. So after that, we were like, we have to have the in-person version.
Yeah.
Hey, right off the bat, I have to address a tension that I feel.
Oh.
So, for years, Jesse and I, listeners at home, Jesse and I, we've worked together for years.
Very long time.
And forever, I have heard Jesse refer to Michelle as Shell.
Mm-hmm.
It's a common pet term of endearment. Now, as Jesse's coworker and friend, and you and I are friends.
Yes.
But in this sort of space, is it appropriate for me to call you Shell?
Or is this just a pet name?
Or
If
is
you call-
it reserved
for
only
Jesse.
for
If
Jesse?
you call her Michelle, she'll think you're mad at her.
I think I'm in trouble when
Yeah, she
someone-
thinks she's in
Okay.
trouble when she hears her full name.
Yeah.
Nobody calls her Michelle.
Okay.
Her
Okay,
mother
good.
doesn't call
Shell.
her
So it's
All the
Shell.
way.
It's
Yes.
Shell.
Yes. Shell.
Do you sign things, Shell?
I'll sign cards, Shell.
Okay. Is it SH or CH?
SH.
SHELLE?
No E, just like
E.
the seashell.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
The shell.
That's lovely.
Yeah.
Thanks. Yeah. No, shell for sure.
Okay.
Love it.
Okay, welcome to the show, Shell.
So glad to be here.
Hey, today on the show, we're going to have a ton of fun, but we're also going to deal with a really serious topic that every couple has to grapple with. And some couples, this issue becomes the defining characteristic of their relationship, and that is forgiveness. We're going to talk about how do we forgive each other, the importance of forgiveness, and what happens if your spouse really messes up. And are there things you shouldn't forgive? And as a Christian, are there things that you ought to forgive, but you can't find yourself? You don't have the capacity in you to let go. So we're going to talk about tensions of forgiveness later in the show.
I'm going to need you guys to kind of lead the charge on that because we've never really had those moments. Definitely.
Okay, yeah.
Never.
Not a
Well,
single one.
we
Yeah.
received a question from a listener, and so Dave and I were just talking about it, and I said, I don't know if that would be a good topic to center on because I don't know if it affects that many couples. And Dave was like, "You've got to be kidding."
Yeah, it affects pretty much every couple,
Yeah,
I would imagine.
yeah. So-
we certainly have that as part of our
So
story.
this is a question that was prompted by a listener who wrote to us.
Yes. So forgiveness talk, stay tuned.
Let's go.
Before that, though, Renee, I'm going to turn it to you and our introductory question. Hey, how are you doing? How's marriage treating you these days?
Yeah, I think we're gifted a fabulous experience that we're just basking in right now.
That we haven't experienced yet.
No, but the anticipation. So thank you, Jesse and John, for giving us 50-yard line Broncos tickets.
Wow.
A week from Sunday.
We cannot wait. The mighty Broncos against Baltimore Ravens.
It's going to be a fun game.
It should
Yeah.
be a fun game.
We likely will be undefeated.
The Broncos should
You
be,
better be undefeated.
Right.
and also likely going to get just smoked by Baltimore, but it's going to be a blast.
Denver's got great run defense. Lamar's going to get shut down. It'll
Yeah.
be fine.
Oh, that's your-
shut down in quotes.
That's your prediction. So that's
So I feel like we're kind of just anticipating it's been vibey.
yeah.
Like we feel vibey together because it's like we're gonna do this fun thing. Back to our playing, referring to our play together. This will be a fun kind of play together experience.
Yeah.
Other than that, I think we're doing okay. We're kind of in the meat of school and the fall and our routine, and it's going well. Yeah, your face looks like you don't agree with me.
Well, I do agree with you. Right before we went on the show, Renee told me that whenever I'm talking and I think,
What
I
does he
do
do,
a
Jesse?
weird
Do you know what?
thing.
He puts
she
his hand
says,
back here.
I do a weird
does. He
thing
like-
with my ear
You start playing with
He does.
Yeah.
in my
totally does.
in my hand, and
just
I
like-
have never. No one's ever told me that before. So you've just sabotaged the way
it's a
that I
tell.
think, and so I
Just
just
get the hand back there and go.
no. I feel anyway. So that's why I'm looking at you funny. I don't know how to think anymore without evidently this hand being behind my ear doing this weird thing.
That's fine.
It's fine. It's not offensive.
totally
Just
fine.
put the hand back there and go.
All right. Well, I'm feeling a little self-conscious.
I'm sorry.
But other than that, I'm doing great. How about the Cowans?
How are you
How's our
going on with
marriage?
you guys?
You know, I like how quickly you threw that question my direction.
You're the guest. Everyone wants to know what you think.
Yeah, they hear me all the time.
Everyone wants to know. I feel like we're doing good. Our marriage is doing good.
Yeah.
Yeah.
We've had some moments. Hey, you guys have quit giving numbers, by the way. Give a number.
Oh, that's right. I'd say we're at 7.8.
Yeah, like a B minus.
Oh.
No, that's 7.8.
If I got a B minus on a test, I would have been bummed.
No, I want to. It's great right now. This is a good baseline. A B is a good base. B minus is a good baseline. I'm looking forward to that A later in the week.
Gosh.
Friday's coming.
Friday's come.
Oh, stop. Oh, my gosh.
You'll have to go back and longtime listeners will know what we're referring to.
I was thinking when you guys were coming, I was thinking that we represent different generations because you guys are millennials, right?
We
Yes.
Yeah. And I do think one thing I was excited to talk to you guys about. I think Gen Xers kind of have this built-in commitment as a generation, and it seems like I've loved watching your relationship because it seems like millennials don't quite have that same starter marriage is a thing with
Yeah.
millennials.
Yeah, can be for sure.
And I know a lot of people that was the situation. So I would love for you guys to speak to, I mean, yes, how you're doing, but even how you see marriage in your peers and kind of your expectations going in. I know this is a huge question, but I just think that's an interesting difference in us. And I feel like you guys are navigating it really well and maybe a little different than other people your age.
It is interesting. We talked about this a little while ago, but we have some friends here at FDC who are within a few weeks, the gap between their marriage and our marriage is about the same as your marriage and our marriage. So almost 10 years apart to the day. And we had this almost freak out moment of realization that it's like, holy crap, we are to them what the Morelands are to us, and that's incredibly intimidating.
Shouldn't be.
Well, no, but just, thinking back to, 10 plus years ago, whenever we started interacting and, we were able to kind of see into you guys' marriage, it was like, okay, all right, this is we are now that.
Yes.
So good luck.
And you know what else you are? You guys are that. So to my children, which
Yeah.
I mean, it's part of the reason I think it's so important because my kids can't envision being old like us, right? But they can envision being your age and cool and fun.
My
and-
oldest son literally
gracious,
envisions being
Renee.
just like
Yes.
Jesse.
No,
Very
seriously.
gracious.
No, seriously. And I love it that they have you guys to watch because they're actually watching you and they've long stopped watching.
They just
us.
take us for granted.
Yes.
We are
We're fogies.
Which again is hilarious because when I first met Beckett, he couldn't walk.
Yeah. Yeah,
like
that's nuts.
that's where we're at, and
Yeah.
now he's gonna be in middle school.
Yeah,
so
it's
it's
crazy.
like
in middle school.
In middle school, yeah, he's 6th grade. So it's like, what even is my life?
Yeah.
So-
So I think I would like to hear like how do you guys see your marriage and
Yeah.
and Dave was even like hoping like for one big like in our 10 years this is our big takeaway or this is what like a hard won lesson that we've learned.
I think one thing that's interesting to your point of how do we view marriage and how do millennials view marriage, our story I feel like is a little unique because we met when we like 2 weeks into our freshman year of college.
Very young.
Very young. And then Jesse changed schools. Maybe you were transferring to a different college like 2 months after we started dating. We were 18. So very early on, we had to have this very awkward, weird conversation of, I mean, how much do you like me? And how much do I like you? And do I want to be... He was transferring to a school that would be considered long distance for us to stay in a relationship.
Yeah,
so
like 6.5 hours away. It's
yeah, so
very
do two
much long
18-year-olds
distance.
with no gas money
Right.
want to
Yeah.
be in a long distance relationship? And this is when I had to like beg my father for 50 text messages a month or something
Yeah.
crazy, right?
Yeah, for all you youngins, there was a point where texting was not unlimited.
Wow.
Yes.
Gosh.
So I feel like we had that really interesting conversation very early on in our marriage of like, how much are you in? Because this is going to be annoying. So we just need to decide. And so I feel like that decision has kind of characterized how we grew into our view of marriage with one another. Yeah. And even the name of the podcast resonated like the first time I heard that because there is no quitting the home team. And so I think that's very different. And we've seen the more life you live, more of your friends getting divorced or
Yeah.
having just really intense relationship challenges or whatever that looks like, separating. And so it is really interesting, I think, in the millennial generation, how temporary, because everything can be replaced.
Right.
Is sort of how it feels.
Yeah.
Start our homes, start our marriage,
Yep. Yep.
all the things.
And the expectation sometimes it seems like is to move through things. Whereas I do think our generation is a little bit more, there was a permanence more to things and things didn't move so quickly.
Yeah.
For sure. And, it is the fact that we got married at 22 is exceedingly rare now. It's less rare
gosh.
for previous generations. And I would say there was even kind of a turning point in our generation where, a lot of our friends didn't get married until late 20s, early 30s. And so that even in and of itself, it feels like we're, because we got married so young, that's presented a whole other set of challenges. And a lot of times I'd be interested to see the data on this, but, when you get married younger, what are the odds, do you then are you more prone to doubling down and sticking through it? Or are you more likely to be like, well, that was a young, stupid mistake. Let's run that back and try again,
Dave, you said there's statistics that the divorce rates, if you marry under age 25, right? Are
Yeah, they're higher.
higher. Okay.
They're higher, yeah.
That's what my gut,
Yeah.
assumption was for
Yeah.
sure.
And there's all kinds of, there's gobs of research to support and or challenge that. But
Yeah.
I think on the whole, everyone agrees that, and it makes sense. It's not
Yeah.
complicated. You're generally, your values aren't quite as worked out.
But you're still
still growing
becoming
as a,
into an adult.
Well, yeah,
right?
if you're a male, it's like your brain hasn't even fully
Right.
developed. Like you're choosing to commit and step into this covenant with another human being, and your brain hasn't finished developing
Yeah.
yet.
Yeah,
so.
I'm hoping when I turn 50, that really development. is
Yeah.
the frontal
really-
lobe finally,
Yeah,
finally
yeah.
gets there.
Finally
Finally.
Kind of finishes
50.
up there.
Yeah,
Can you accelerate the boys as well as you're finalizing yours? Can you
I'll
like?
try. I'll try.
All right.
Well, cool.
So are we good? What would you,
What's one thing? Like, what would
Ooh,
you guys
yeah.
say for 10 years in? Right?
10 years in, 11
What's-
years in?
11 years in. How about that?
Oh yeah,
Just
Yeah.
added a year.
Yeah.
Just
We
like
just added a year.
Boom.
And also I'm notorious for getting how long we've been married.
We've been married for
wrong.
13 years, in her eyes for like 5 years.
I'm all over the place. I was celebrating our 10-year anniversary like 2 years before.
At year 8, yeah, it's fine.
Anyway.
Because we
only a
dated.
number.
We dated for 4
Like
years.
we've been together
before that.
forever.
Yeah,
I don't
it's
know
like,
anymore.
Yeah.
You lose. track.
Anyway,
What would be one thing that is like this is our hard one advice
Friends are listening.
after 11, 13, 17 years in?
Yeah, we talked about this a little bit this morning in trying to, as best we could, mentally prepare ourselves for this podcast. I think probably the most hard one and consistent thing that we've seen is to how do we put it? Fight well. That's really what it came down to, is fighting well.
yeah.
Yeah, what would you?
Yeah, and it's interesting when we were talking about it because I wouldn't say, if I step back and look at our relationship, like, wow, we fight, or what does it mean to fight? And I think we've known each other for so long now, but we've learned how to communicate when we're angry in a way that's fair to the other person. And I think what's been hard fought and earned over however many seasons is getting together when you're so young and you travel through things, and then the longer you're married, you experience things that are just big life things like grief and hard times and different pieces, and learning to still care for one another in seasons of hurt and pain and fight. Like, you're gonna fight even if you're grieving. Like, if something is if you're sad, like, life still happens, right? And so I think being able to communicate well and to speak honestly, and then to find a resolution quickly. We definitely don't. We don't sit in fights for days, if that makes sense.
Did you as early?
I don't.
Well,
more than we do now.
Yeah. I would say the bigger issue we ran into early on is we would fight to win more than we would fight to like find resolution. So instead of fighting the thing that was actually causing us to fight, we would just fight each other, and that tends to be incredibly unproductive. And so I think as time went on, we learned more to like, hey, let's attack the thing that's actually dividing us and not attack the symptoms, or especially not attack one another. But that was, that was, as you said, pretty hard won.
Yeah. So like always operating from we're on the same team.
Yeah. Yeah.
And I feel like early on it was
Yeah.
you're on opposite sides, opposite corners, and having to find a way back together.
Yeah.
And so I feel like we start from a different frame of reference, and it's more honest. So I feel like sometimes we can even grow through that, not just find a resolution, but we learn more about one another.
It's good.
Yeah, it's beautiful.
Yeah.
In that vein, we're going to let you guys do the surprise question today.
I'm so nervous.
So I think Jesse is bringing the surprise question.
Yeah. I almost forgot this. I'm glad I didn't. All right. So, Michelle.
She looks
Well,
a little...
first of all,
Now she
You're in
uses
trouble, Michelle.
There you go.
rude.
You are in trouble now.
It's like someone just said my middle name too. I'll go on.
Love of my life, bride of my youth.
Oh dear.
What is a moment where you thought this is absolutely not going to work? This guy is a clown. I cannot believe I have attached myself to this fool. What was a moment, or probably more than one? What were the standout moments where you thought, yeah, this was a mistake, and what got you through those through 11 years of marriage to today?
11 years of marriage.
18 years of marriage.
You know, as awful as it sounds, I was very concerned that I wouldn't know the answer right off the bat to this question, whatever it was that you were going to ask. But I do remember this distinct moment and where I was standing when it happened.
Do tell.
Yeah. So I think one of the unique things, we already talked about this, but we were 18 whenever we started dating. So
Yes.
there was a whole lot of immaturity going on there of just having to learn how to be adults and all the things, right, that you learn when you're 18. So after Jesse transferred to a different college, like I said, and he was pursuing a music degree and just playing a lot of music, playing in a lot of bands. Not a whole lot has changed, as it turns out, in that regard.
Shocking.
Shocking. So I think we were 19, maybe 20, and you already know what I'm going to talk about.
We were 19.
We were 19. I was nannying back home for summer, and Jesse was playing in a band I just have to say, like, I've never really met, I'm excluding you from this comment, I've never really met a group of boys that were just, they just like smelled really bad and they were like gross. Okay. They were like
Stinky dudes.
sophomores in college and it was just not a good deal. Right. Anyway, so they were in a band and the music was pretty good. And you guys were touring for the summer.
Oh, wow.
And Jesse had a lot of plans as far as wanting to be in bands and tour or doing live audio production for concerts, all kinds of things, trying to figure that out in college. I wasn't super sure if I was on board with that plan because it just means you're on the road a lot.
Yeah.
And either you're together or separate, all of those things. And so he and his pals hopped in this van,
Suburban, yeah.
Suburban, and drove around. I don't even know where you went. Because
Texas?
It was a Southwest tour, so Texas, New Mexico.
Okay, Texas,
Arizona.
New Mexico, and they're playing music. And the person that my amazing husband became when he went on tour, you were like a real jerk, I gotta say.
Yeah,
He was
I
a real
was.
jerk.
I was.
Yep.
It wasn't on purpose, but
Like,
it brought a bad thing out of me.
didn't call, very preoccupied. And I'm a very callable person. I'm
She is.
really great to talk to.
Can attest.
Like, did he become like this prima donna, like musician, like artist, like kind of that?
Aloof, kind of like aloof and
I think aloof is a good word. But definitely like preoccupied, like what I've got going on is very important. And just available to talk for like 30 seconds on the phone, that kind of a thing. And I was in the kitchen.
Did he start wearing like obscure hats in the
Yeah.
season?
I don't know. Did you?
No.
No, I didn't. This was before. I think before that became. I will say, I was the lead vocalist in this band, which I think
guys-
may have contributed
frontman.
No.
to the
Frontman.
ego inflation.
you know what this
Would
is,
you-
Dave? This is rat poison.
Oh,
he,
yeah.
he was eating the rat
Yeah,
poison.
he was. He
Yeah,
was.
real high on my own supply.
So the name of this band, it only makes the story better. Love on a Boombox.
Love on a boombox.
I don't.
I don't know how I was courted by the other members of this band and
I have PTSD even talking about this.
brought in after the name had already been chosen. So I inherited that one.
So he became just busy, preoccupied, jerky, not available. Generally,
You're like,
delightful.
I'm not signing up for this.
I
for the
was
rest of my
making Jello for my little nanny children in the kitchen one day. I was like, I don't think I'm in for this. And anyway, so I just said, hey, you gotta get it together here, Cowan. I was like, you can call me more and we can talk. Otherwise, I'm out.
life.
Or you can just not call again. Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
Was it a shaping conversation?
Yeah, for sure. And it got me thinking. I'd been thinking very short term in the there was the ongoing battle in my head of, wow, do I want to be on the road? Do I want to be in bands, doing production, whatever? Or do I want to not spend my life on a bus? And that was a what Dave would call a Kairos moment, where I had this picture in front of me where it was like, well, do I want this lifestyle more than I want to be in this relationship? And at the end of the day, what felt much more sustainable and life-giving long term was to tour. No, I'm just kidding. Was to not ruin things. To not ruin things with this girl that I loved. And so that was a pretty shaping experience for me, where I was like, oh, well, maybe touring life isn't it. And I still did. I did a few more like shorter things and worked with other bands that I was not a participant in, and that was better. But it was still pretty clear, like, yeah, I want to sleep in my own bed at night, and she is better than touring. So, and it remains to be true. It remains true to this day.
I thought you were going to say it remains to be seen.
No.
That's the interesting thing too, is because while he's having the moment of, is this what I want to do? You're also, or I was also having that moment. But then in thinking long term, like, hey, if this does work out and we're together for 50, 60, however many years, are you going to resent me when you're 45 and you didn't have this life?
Yeah.
And so,
which I think that was a fear early on. We had a lot of conversations around that.
Yeah. So I feel like we tackled, can you be better at talking on the phone? Yeah.
Marginally better.
Marginally better. Anyway, so like a silly low hanging, can we communicate better?
Yeah.
And then, is this what we want to do?
Yeah.
That's a lot for 19-year-olds.
That is.
Yeah, weighty stuff.
Yeah, that's
For sure.
I would say on the mature side of 19-year-olds,
Well,
for sure.
We stumbled through it, but we got there.
Well, that's great.
Yeah, that's a great surprise question.
Yeah.
Well done,
Thanks,
guys.
All right, transitioning to, but seriously though, I'm trying to get my voice really deep. But seriously though,
I've been trying to get my voice deep.
Yeah, I was gonna say, Dave and I have been waging this war forever. It's not gonna end well, Renee.
I got a text from a listener to ask specifically about forgiveness, which prompted a conversation, as I alluded to earlier, that, oh, this isn't that big of a deal in marriages, to which Dave responded that it was a big deal. And so I guess the angle I want you to address it was the question. I mean, I think all of us, if you interact with a human, we're going to hurt each other, right? And it seems to be levels of wounds, right? Because I think even like we talked about a few weeks ago, we had a fight while we were waiting to do this podcast, and it was just a flesh wound, right?
That's right.
Like
That's right.
it was
I'm
fine.
over it by now.
No, we were fine in 10 minutes after it. But I think there are depths of wounds when forgiveness just isn't happening. And when one person, and a Christian couple who would adhere to, would say that they participate in the faith of Christianity, which forgiveness is a part of, right?
Right.
But how do you move forward when the depth of the wound is just, you just can't get over it? The scar's too big.
Yeah, it's a great question, and I know it hits home in every marriage to some extent. A couple of kind of introductory ideas or concepts. The first is, and you actually hinted at it. Oh my gosh, I did it! My hand is going behind my
All
ear.
right, let it happen.
I can't.
Let it happen.
Just do it.
I just realized I have this quirk,
It's okay.
and
It just means you're really easy to play poker against.
Oh my
That's all it
gosh.
means.
And Dave, just know that everyone in this room, if we see it, we'll make eye contact
We're
with
just
you.
gonna stare.
Make you feel really comfortable.
I have taught for years.
Yeah, with
You
your
do-
just
and you do
playing with like the hair.
I've
and,
taught in
and behind you. Yeah.
classrooms for years.
Honey,
Yeah.
I'm really
Your
sorry
students
to
all know
introduce
this.
And now-
this insecurity. Get the hand back there and keep going.
Hey, you don't do it while you preach. I'll give you that.
I don't? Okay.
No,
you
you
do
don't.
not do it while you preach.
Occasionally, he will.
I mean, every once in a while, but typically your
Not a good
hands
time
are
for Dave, I know.
preoccupied.
Okay, back to your
So
thought.
off rails.
Assume the posture.
What were we talking about?
Can't even remember.
Forgiveness.
Forgiveness.
Oh, yeah.
Forgiveness. The guarantee of marriage is that you're going to have to forgive. Like, that's like the one thing you know you're going to have to do. And great book called What Did You Expect by one of the Tripp brothers. I forget which one. And his basic point in this book, What Did You Expect, is you have two sinful people, and now you're in marriage, you're combining your sinfulness, and your sin actually compounds. So you kind of create a mutant sinful like possibilities, like your sinful patterns bounce off your spouse's sinful patterns, and then it creates this like
exponential
yes
potential.
Greater than the sum of its parts.
right
Yep,
right
yep.
and so his point and What Did You Expect is like there's going to be profound hurt. So that couples are in a situation where both needing forgiveness and granting forgiveness is an issue. It shouldn't be a surprise. It's sort of the thing that your marriage is going to be
It's
shaped
guaranteed,
by.
yeah.
It's going to be shaped by one way or the other. So the level of the offense then becomes like, okay, to what extent am I okay with, like, there's sort of levels of offenses that people have in their mind. Like, I'm okay with this, but I'm not okay with that.
Right, like you ate the piece of cake I had sitting out for me versus you cheated on me.
Right.
Right. I mean, there's
Yeah, those are different. Yeah,
right,
those are different things.
Right.
So, how does then forgiveness happen? The first thing is that this is unique to a Christian marriage, that there is a baseline calling. There's a baseline obedience, actually, of being a Christian, that you're commanded to forgive. Like we don't, by virtue of the fact of how Christianity works, is you confess Jesus to be Lord. So he's the boss, his opinions, his thoughts, his feelings actually are over my thoughts, my feelings, my own opinions. So by virtue of the fact that I confess Jesus as Lord, that means that I have to subject my will to his. And he's made it really super duper clear that his desire for me as his follower is that I'm a person of forgiveness and that I forgive other people. So whether that person is someone who I loved and trusted deeply, or if that person is my sworn enemy. It's like, oh, it's your enemy? Oh, okay. Then you love them. And you pray for that person. You pray for good things for that person. So no one, like there's no like category of person who doesn't qualify for forgiveness.
Yeah, and I even thought when I got the text, like even the example of Jesus on the cross, the last thing he says is, "Father, forgive them, for they know not what they do," as someone who killed him for no reason.
Yeah.
Like, and we probably don't have offenses in our relationship that are greater than that.
That's highly likely. So the foundation of our faith is built on forgiveness, us receiving forgiveness from God, Jesus paying the cost, the penalty for our sin, then grants us that forgiveness. So the very sort of foundation we stand on is forgiveness. So I just say that as a baseline, because everyone has a category. Like everyone thinks that there might be a category of, I don't need to forgive this person, or I don't need to let this go, or like I can hang on to this, and it just doesn't exist. And I've done pastoral counseling for many years. The level of offense is significant. But even with that, even if that's your case, where the level of offense and sin is significant, you're still commanded to forgive. So the first thing you have to do is just wrap your mind around that I actually don't have a choice to forgive as a Christian.
Yeah.
That's a command. It's
Yeah.
a matter of obedience. Now, once that becomes sort of a reality to be grappled with, then you enter into a whole new sphere, which is the process of forgiveness,
Yeah.
which is super complicated. It can be, depending on the level of hurt.
Right.
Happens over an enormous, at times, period of time, or a wildly varying period of time,
Right.
and in different stages and levels. So the first thing, once you decide you're going to forgive, there's a couple of sort of behavioral differences that happen. Number one is this, is you are, as the person who's doing the forgiving, you are now making the choice that I'm no longer going to use this offense against that person.
Yeah.
Which means a couple things, which means whenever I think of the offense, I'm going to reverse my negative rumination, and I'm going to, on purpose, force myself to think of something else. We get, when we're offended, we get stuck in patterns of thinking of the offense, repeating that offense over and over and over and over and over and over and over again. And then we get fired up about it, and we tell our friends about it, and they get fired up about it, and it makes the offense greater and greater and bigger and bigger and bigger, right? So when you decide to forgive, and this is why, by the way, this is why gossip and sometimes talking with friends helps in this, and sometimes it doesn't. It's like a balloon. You want to talk to friends who help let air out of the balloon. You don't want to talk to friends that actually amp up the balloon, gets bigger and bigger and bigger, and it just
then pops in your face.
Yeah, just magnifies it. So the decision to forgive is like, I'm not going to use this offense against this person again, and I'm going to make a decision in my own mind that I'm not going to ruminate on him anymore. And this is, if depending on the level of offense and history of origin, there's all kinds of background stuff to this, but you're just making that decision. That's behavioral modification.
Right.
That doesn't even touch your heart.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But it's one of those patterns of behavior that then begins to sort of seep into and counteract bitterness, reverse some of the effects of bitterness that are inevitable to be in your heart towards that person. Now, the final stages of forgiveness looks like this. It's when you can, in your heart, desire what's best for that person and mean it. I actually want what's good for you. I don't want you to get hit by a bus anymore. And for years I did. To be honest,
Sure.
I wanted you to get what you had coming to you.
Yeah.
No. Forgiveness is forfeiting the right for vengeance. And actually, I want what's best for you. And then really a final stage that really initiates and completes the emotional side of forgiveness is empathy. In other words, I've actually put myself into my husband's shoes or my wife's shoes, and I now kind of understand why it is she did that, why it is he did that. Now, this doesn't excuse the sin or the offense, but when you are able to put yourself into the shoes of your spouse in that way, it humanizes them.
Yeah.
Suddenly, they're not a monster. And we when we're offended, we create people we turn people into monsters.
Yeah.
We create they are the other. And yet the power of empathy is that no, they're just a person.
Yeah.
They're broken. And you can actually, hey, I get it. What you did hurt me to my core. But I get it. Doesn't excuse it. But when you can empathize, then you're forgiving a person,
Yeah.
not a monster, and then the possibility of reconciliation. Then it comes after that. But
What would you say to the person? I mean, I think that's so insightful. But for the person who is the one that's not being forgiven, who really doesn't have agency in that work,
right,
like to just be the recipient, and there's been apologies and all of that, contrite. I'm really sorry I did this, but yet just still has to live in that context.
It's tough. That Jesus was asked this very question. Jesus, if my brother offends me, how many times do I forgive him? Up to 7 times? Jesus says 70 times 7. Sort of a way of saying it's limitless. So if that, say as a Christian, that person isn't on good ground to hold that offense against their spouse. As a Christian, you just
Right, but what if they are?
right then.
It's not as it ought, right? But what if it is?
Yeah. Depending on the situation, it could be that the repentance doesn't feel legitimate.
Yeah.
So in Proverbs, it talks about he who repeats a matter separates close friends.
Yeah.
So there's like a, hey, I'm sorry, but I do it again.
Yeah.
And it's like, okay, you're not sorry. You're sorry you got caught. You're sorry.
Yeah.
But there's not the behavior that causes me pain and anguish actually hasn't been adjusted or addressed. And so, so that could be part of it. And I believe, I want to be careful with this. I do believe in restitution.
Same.
I do believe in doing whatever it takes to make things right, and as much as it depends upon you. So let's say, for example, I do something stupid to you, and you're mad at me, justifiably. I'm seeking your forgiveness, but I'm also thinking to myself, what can I do to make it right? So, and it's unique to our own relationship.
Right.
So I do think there is some creative possibility that if someone won't forgive you,
Of what to give you some agency to say, what can I do to either communicate or show this person?
yes.
Like,
And the proverbial way of talking about it is actually winning a soul. He who wins a soul is wise. And so it's unique to the person. How do I win your soul back? Like, how do I win your trust back? And I've seen couples do this in every which way possible. It's as diverse as individual couples themselves.
yeah.
So, but there is some agency in that.
Yeah.
And so I do think there are creative ways to do that. As a general rule, I tend to not dismiss, but to warn against like the grand gesture, like here are the 17 bouquets of flowers and the whatever.
The trip to Paris.
Yeah, the grand gesture as a way of compensation usually isn't a good pattern of behavior, but
It's not sustainable.
yeah, but if it's in accordance with I'm doing whatever I can to win your trust back, then I'm all for it. Why not?
Yeah.
Go for it. Go for it. But even if at the very end of that, there's just what you're meeting is just a cold heart that's just isn't there. Like there's not going to be forgiveness ever found. Then that's sort of, you're getting into the realm of like abandonment.
Yeah.
You've left the relationship.
Yeah.
And that's serious. That has to be dealt with and a light shined on that.
Yeah. That's good. Thanks, son.
Yeah, well, that's some forgiveness talk, Jesse.
Tim Keller, my Shell's brother, a very close friend of mine. We
Wait,
often.
Shell's brother is Tim Keller?
Yes, yes.
Wait, why has
I know.
Why
How
have you
has
not
this
put
never
those
come
straight
up?
out?
How has this never come up?
Come here.
Been holding out.
Shell's brother, Michael, he and I have long held the belief that had we met around any other circumstance other than me dating his sister, we still would have been very good friends, lifelong friends. Even.
Okay.
And so it's great. He and I have a very healthy relationship. Anyway, the other morning he chose violence right away and texted me this Tim Keller quote. It says, holding a grudge against someone means you think you know what they deserve and you take it upon yourself to give it to them.
Yeah.
And that's what kept rattling around as you were talking about this. It's like
That's good.
choosing not to forgive somebody is outright deciding that you know what they deserve and no one else is going to be able to give them that comeuppance other than you. And
And you
profoundly-
place yourself in the position of omniscience.
exactly.
Like,
It's
Yeah.
profoundly unbiblical and deleterious to healthy relationships.
Yeah.
I feel like in that space too, there should be a responsibility to pray for that other person. Like if you're waiting on them to forgive and they won't, and if you're all operating under the same guise of, like we have a responsibility as believers to forgive, then just, I feel like the immense amount of pain and also anger that is all stirring around inside. And we've certainly had a season where I know that I withheld forgiveness from you and you withheld forgiveness from me.
Yeah.
And I think just what festers in that season is it's just gross.
Yeah.
And so I'm sure there's a lot going on internally for a person withholding forgiveness too. But I feel like if you're the one waiting, then maybe there's some discipline in praying for the
them.
other person.
It's really good.
There
Yeah,
was,
it's
and
good.
yeah, and there was some, again, speaking to hard won things like the aftermath of that season of our life. I mean, it's almost like you think of like almost like a surgeon having to cut out the rot,
Wow.
right? Like that's
Yeah.
what it felt
Decay,
like.
yeah.
Yeah, like
Yeah.
the work following that season felt like, hey, there's some real nasty, evil, deadly stuff here.
Yeah.
I mean, it was a better part of a year
Yeah.
on the other side of that before we came out of it in even a reasonably healthy place. But yeah, so all of that to add to your point, it is very rarely easy to forgive someone. We wouldn't be having this conversation if it were something that came naturally to
Right.
us, right?
Right.
So
We all have a sense of justice. We all have a sense of righteousness.
And the
which is
people
beautiful and
closest,
God-given.
Totally.
right?
And the people
Yeah.
closest to us can hurt us the deepest.
Absolutely.
So,
The part in your brain that lights up when you love someone is the same part of your brain that lights up when you hate someone.
yeah.
It's all tied to passion.
Well, we were talking about earlier too about learning to fight well, and we fight more honestly, but with that is the flip side that now that I know how to fight well, I also know how to hurt you like
Yep.
really well.
Yeah. Yeah.
And so it's
The danger of intimacy.
it
Yep,
is,
it
yeah.
is. It is.
So battling that.
Paradox of intimacy.
Yeah.
Yep.
All right.
Great.
Woof.
Going lighter, we're going to talk about what's weird about us. We'll go first. For the this is actually started out what's weird about me, but I've fully roped Dave into this. It's not a pathology; it's just weirdness. But so I have a huge garden. I love to garden. I love to grow vegetables. And this time of year, blame it on my like frugal Midwestern work ethic. I cannot waste any of it. Okay. None of it. So every single thing that comes out of the garden.
I'm literally about to vomit a little bit in my mouth. I have so much zucchini in my system. You just saying that, like, I have
Last
zucchini.
night for dinner, we had, and this is a delicious recipe from the New York Times, zucchini ricotta basil pasta.
Oh, yeah.
With zucchini
Yum.
bread. But even like the copious amounts of tomato, we have tomato, zucchini in every meal. It's like we cannot waste a single vegetable.
Not one.
No.
I mean, Renee, I'm just gonna put it out there. Like, this has nothing to do with our, like, because zucchini thrives in Denver. If you're not from here,
They're like dandelions.
You can't understand. Like we have
control.
neighbors that will give us zucchini the size of baseball bats. Like it's ridiculous. But I have fully devolved into dad that will shovel kids' leftovers into
So
his
gross.
face over the sink because I don't want to waste.
Oh,
that
Jesse, kindred
half-
spirit.
That
We're-
like half
Look,
bowl
we're-
of mac
yeah,
and
like the
cheese. It's
99
like
cent
throw
box
it
of
away.
mac and cheese.
Just throw it. Like no, I can't. Like yeah. So I'm.
You feel me?
I can only imagine the impulse being that much stronger if it was like I slaved over this. I fought for this garden.
is saving us
Yes.
money.
Saving money.
So we had
Yeah.
we used probably 7 zucchini last night.
Yeah,
And
so
there
many.
are
Amazing.
like
Dave's like a million.
6 left in the refrigerator, and I'm like, I'm gonna make 8 loaves of zucchini bread, and I'm gonna freeze
And
6 of them.
meanwhile, I'm like contemplating fasting. It's like, I don't need to eat. I think it's good. It's biblical. I can just have a season of just not eating for a while.
Hey Dave.
Till the zucchini's gone.
Zucchini freezes. That's all I'm gonna say.
man.
Zucchini freezes.
All right. What about you guys? What's weird about the cows?
What's weird about us is that there's actually nothing weird about us. So joke's on you. Shell, what's weird about us?
What can we choose from?
That's what I
Yeah.
said. This is the easiest segment of the entire
Well,
podcast.
it's-
We have
it-
like a treasure trove.
This is what was funny because we've spent the last 24 hours really trying to dig into this, and there's a lot of stuff that is individually weird about it. Like we're freak shows. But
for yourself.
speak for myself. I'm a freak show. My lovely, beautiful wife.
Yep, there
Never
it
done
is.
anything wrong in her entire life. Yeah.
Hold on.
Yeah, we were able to pretty quickly come up with stuff that's weird about us individually. As a couple, it's like, what is weird about us? I don't know. We found something real good though.
I feel like this is weird. So, just as a baseline for people that don't know us, Jesse and I are very competitive
No, we're not.
people.
Fight me.
Individually competitive. This is
I
not
played
good.
basketball with both of you. I know you guys are competitive.
Dave's
Yes.
seen the fire, the fire in the eyes.
The fire in the eyes. And so I feel like for a lot of married couples, you have this ability to like come alongside one another and be on the same team. We're talking like board games.
Yep. One-on-one.
Game of pig,
Card games,
you know,
any of it.
really low
Video
risk
games, all of it.
things. But we have found that we do very poorly playing together and also playing separately.
We just shouldn't be allowed to
play
compete
games.
with or against each other ever, because it
So
always.
other than dedicating your life to be with each other for the rest of your life.
yeah,
We're
for
great
sure.
teammates, but when it
Yes.
comes to frivolous activities, the gloves come off.
The
I
moment
feel.
it's no longer a meaningful thing, it's like we have to be separated.
Yeah. So like if we are on opposing teams, like it's ruthless. We are out for one another
Yeah.
to
Wow.
win.
Yeah.
And if we're on the same team, if somebody drops the ball,
Yeah.
then
Literally or figuratively.
yes, literally or figuratively, the competitiveness in me is very disappointed in you. Like, how
Yeah,
could you-
same.
we're going to lose because of you.
Yeah. Yeah. We're going to lose and it's your fault.
Do you
And,
feel like
yeah,
this is intensified as you've gotten older? Or less?
Absolutely.
100%.
Wow. See, because I would say I'm the opposite. Like I was super. I totally empathize with the competitive, but I feel like maybe it's being married to Dave. But I feel like as I've gotten older, it's gotten
Wow.
less. Don't you think?
Yeah, and I think, well, I don't know.
Oh.
I feel like
Contradicting.
the last time we played a board game in our house, Settlers of Catan, where we all participated. How did that go?
The reason it ended like that
Hold on. Let's answer first.
is because all of the boys ganged up on me, all of them, and they were making alliances and attacking me, and it wasn't nice. It was rude, and I was like, I'm not doing this.
Hey,
So
them's-
did you finish
them's
the game?
No, I
rules.
quit.
Oh.
Because they kept just like heaping it on, and I'm like, I've given my life for you.
Yes.
It's like why attack dad or attack Will?
There's a recurring
Why attack me?
phrase in our household where one of the boys will do something against their mother, and her immediate response is, "You don't get to say that. You don't get to. I birthed you. You do not have the right."
No. It should be
So it
disallowed.
wasn't competitiveness. It was more just,
I was hurt. It was such hurt. But that's interesting that you guys, it's like ramping up.
See, and that's what happens. We double down at that point. We're too stubborn to quit.
I will say, I feel like maybe we're a little different whenever Jacob, who is our almost 6-year-old, is around. Because, namely, Jacob loves sports, which I'm very excited about.
Yeah.
We also love sports.
Yeah. Yeah.
But he just really enjoys it. So we had his first soccer game. Jesse was videoing the soccer footage, as one does, for game footage afterwards.
Break down the film.
Break down the film. And on the film, I had an opportunity to hear myself on the sidelines as a competitive mother. And I didn't really like
Crazy sports mom.
what that sounded like.
She was
What were you
100% crazy sports mom.
It was just a
your
screaming?
classic
Was it just the yelling?
defense,
Yeah.
come on, number so-and-so.
Yeah.
Occasionally,
you were like,
occasionally
"Kill
yelling at
him."
other
I
children.
wanted to be. In my heart, I
Yeah.
was yelling.
She didn't say it out loud.
Anyway, so I feel like when we were with him, we toned it down because we wanted to try to
But
help
it's
him
still-
win or lose well.
it's still
But
there.
yeah, he's definitely a competitive kid.
The fire
too, and-
burns.
Yeah, you guys, that's
burns.
that's fun.
that is fun.
That's a fun fact.
Fun fact.
Little weird.
That's what's weird about the Cowans.
Yes.
Don't challenge them to a game of basketball. All right, in our final section for today, each couple's gonna do a recommendation. And Dave and I were talking about this, and I said we just haven't had a sex wreck. Like we've had.
Oh, was that Dave?
What was that noise?
It's a sex wreck?
A sex wreck, as far as resources.
Yeah. Okay.
So I was like, I think we need a sex wreck, and the book that we came up with is going to sound like the strangest recommendation ever,
It's the best book on sex,
and it's written by a deceased Catholic pope.
as opposed to the other kinds of popes.
Well, there's one that's living.
Oh, yeah. But I was just saying Catholic pope.
Yeah, they're all
Right.
Catholic.
Right, totally. Well, pope may be used elsewhere. I don't know. Does
Yeah,
the Greek Orthodox Church use pope?
Oh, I don't
I bet there are other traditions that use
Don't
pope.
think so.
They don't? Okay, sorry. Anyway, it's a book by Pope John Paul II called The Theology of the Body. I told you this was going to be weird. And Dave, explain why you think it's the best sex wreck.
It, like no other book I've ever read, gave vision to the purpose and meaning of me being a male and of maleness and femaleness in my actual physicality and in my sexuality, that there's meaning and purpose to it. So he kind of breaks down, and the whole book is really a exposition of Ephesians 5, 21 through the end of the chapter. And in it, he talks about how that the male form and the female form in their physicality, their sexual form, that there is an otherness and a foreignness that's literally a part of my physical bodily anatomy.
Yeah.
So that the shape of my sexuality literally is a shape of design and intentionality for another. There's a foreignness and attention to it, not for my benefit. It is a key part of who I am,
Yeah.
but it's actually designed as a gift for another. And it never registered to me until I read it from Pope John Paul II. And so how that impacts sexuality, I think, is obvious. It's that in our sexual embodiment, knowing that my sexuality is a key part of me, but it's also a key part of me that has an otherness component to it. That is to be given. Like when we have sex, I'm giving you me. And there is this, and that's how God designed it, and it's beautiful and to be celebrated. So, anyway,
So
I recommend it.
our sizzling recommendation for our sex rec is The Theology of the Body by
Pope
Pope
John.
Paul II.
Yep.
Pope John
It's only about 500 pages.
Just a quick
Burying
it's a
the
lot to
lead
talk
there a
through.
little
Quick
bit, Dr.
beach
Moreland.
read. Quick beach read.
Yeah.
All right, Callens.
Yeah.
What's the rec?
Our recommendation is a podcast, not this one, but another one, by I think two people we both deeply enjoy and have been influenced by. A couple. One's Preston and Jackie Hill Perry. They have a podcast called 30 Minutes with the Perrys. So there, it's there's a good chance every episode is going to be around 30 minutes, typically even less, unlike this one where you just never know what you're in for until you start it. And that's great. But they handle outstanding topics. Their candor and like their rapport with one another is hilarious. It's outstanding.
I'm excited about this recommendation. I'm a big podcast listener.
So good.
Yeah, and their backgrounds, they both have pretty unique, in many ways traumatic, but also like, you talk about seeing the beauty of the gospel impacting people's lives and working through their trauma, and like theirs is a really incredible story of healing.
I really love their perspective, but what I think is really unique to them is they don't stay in one vein. So the way that their theology informs their discussion about parenthood, and you can just tell that they've spent a lot of time in the Word. And so I've really appreciated specifically Jackie's perspective on motherhood and how she became a mother, and like that journey was very just challenging for her as she dealt with like past views on sexuality and motherhood and her own trauma. And so I feel like they just have a really unique perspective to bring to the table. And then Jackie just has a new book that's out a couple months ago called Holier Than Thou. And I'm like 2 chapters in.
It's very convicting.
But really good talking about the holiness of God and how that makes him more trustworthy for us. And so I've really enjoyed their perspective on marriage, parenthood.
Very cool. I'm excited.
It's
I'm
almost a
excited about this
twofer.
one. Yeah, twofer.
Read that book too.
And the name of the podcast again?
30 Minutes with the Perrys.
Okay, very
And
cool.
the book is called Holier Than Thou. And kind of the central question, as Shell said, is like, if God can't sin, that means that God can't sin against me, which should make him the most trustworthy person there is.
Wow.
Very cool.
Great premise. Great premise.
Well, guys, thanks for your recs, and thanks for being
coming.
guests
Yeah.
on the
Yes.
show.
Fun. So fun.
This is a blast. Thanks.
Hey, thanks everyone for listening. We'll see you next time.
Bye.
Bye.
And in your presence there is fullness of joy.